I will talk about the in-between city, which can be a real city or maybe the city that we are looking for. And so in a couple of minutes, I will shortly present you the journey that took us there, so a few moments of it, trying to engage the public space, transformed our practice in the last couple of years into a public space practice, and we developed several typologies of intervention in the public space. And it all started with a sort of attempt to understand and to adapt to the context we were living in through projects of research that they were mirroring or somehow documenting the urban condition. But at one moment we discovered that there is a sort of a limit to this paper research to really understand what is going on actually in the public space. So after a while we also start as a sort of, still as a form of research, to intervene in the situation that we were researching. And in that way we discovered that by posting an object into the situation revealed itself in a much more complex way. And then these kind of interventions and quick ad hoc actions develop also into a sort of more long-term or slow interventions in the public space in a form of, let's say, public equipment that were, some of them managed to transform the public space, that were inserted into and transform the practice of the users on the long term. And also from this series of engaging the public space, we discovered that there is a need, especially, I don't know, in Romania, to take the process of education into some sort of real condition, because usually it's sort of this kind of laboratory situation that you think about a possible situation in the city, but it's also a need to get in the real situation. And these kind of interventions are a motif for educational projects that are training the let's say the future urbanists and architects to engage the public space. And so all these accumulations of interventions and installations or incidents or public equipment, as we like to call them, we started to use this accumulation also in a much more delicate situation like community project, where the component of interaction with the users is much more important. And there are also a few examples of that. And also, finally, there is also the urban design typology of projects that is either through competitions or other types of projects that are dealing with public space, separated from interventions somehow. But in the next couple of minutes, so to answer the what's going on question, maybe we have to also, in our case, to put the question of like what happened, and what happened with the city we are living in, and the context of the city of Bucharest, where it's our view on the looking back to the history of the city, that the city developed a sort of inherited state of uncertainty that transformed itself into an urban phenomenon. And if we really try to find these moments in the history of the city, it was a sort of obsession of undefensible city, and all the time the city was under threat. And at the start of 20th century, they even managed to make this defense wall around the city. But at the moment that was finished, somebody invented a bigger artillery guns, and it was never used. And the city was always conquered without fight. And so also natural disasters were a constant threat, and they hit the city in a very cyclical way. Floods, fires, earthquakes. But also there were historical disasters, as you can call it. For example, the property rights were never in the, let's say, in a as normal situation. That in the 1950s, the nationalization of private property trigger a phenomenon that happens in the years of 1990 after the revolution. So very complicated and contradictory system of dealing with this nationalization, retrocession, and restitution of the property generated a new set of evictions that were taking urban form and suddenly were appearing on the streets, and people were forced out from their house, and then they start a sort of form of survival on the sidewalks and a sort of manifestation of this invisible conflict that is defining the relationship of the city with its property. And these encampments become more and more complex. So, for example, in this case, this is a living, it was a living unit, so for a family that lived there for, I think, 2 years, I think. But there were also other moments of when, for example, natural disaster and historical disaster were combined, and that was the moment of the big earthquake in 1977 that really shocked the city, and also the physicality of the city, but also the subconscious of the city. And then the political power then, especially, so the guy in the middle is not the chief architect, he was the ruler, he was the main architect, took this opportunity to reshape the city in a much better and proper way, not to be threatened anymore by earthquakes. But then this opened a new set of Pandora box, you know. So a lot of demolitions start to take place, and it's only the demolitions of physical structure, but also communities were demolished, and also the scale of the demolitions was impressive. So there was whole areas of the city that were demolished in a couple of days, and then again, very strange phenomena start to appear. So, for example, what you see in the right image is this attempt of some brilliant engineer to save some of the churches. And the solution was that the churches was put on tracks, railway tracks, and moved out of the way of the boulevard. So imagine a city that you can do like that with buildings in a couple of few days. Whatever was in the red was the demolition of in the 80s, so 1/5 of the city center. And whatever was put in place, so the left is what it was, and the right is what put in place, was a completely different type of city. And everything was made to crown for this building, the House of the People, so the ultimate building. But and again, the uncertainty comes back in this situation. So it was never inaugurated or used by the dictator because so in 1989 it wasn't finished. And actually, the house is a pretext for the balcony, but he never used the balcony. But so not the king of communism was there, but the only one that waved the crowd was the king of pop, Michael Jackson. So you have a city with this brutal intervention right into its middle somehow, that it's still, it's not healed yet. So a lot of after effects, so this 25 years already, but it's still, the after effects are there and are with us. So for example, in the left is the after effects of this earthquake problem. So the red dot says, this building is technically expertise and it's public danger for an earthquake, and this is an apartment building. And again, nationalization and retrocession phenomena that take out in the streets. Even in numbers, it's impressive. So 190 buildings in the central area of Bucharest, almost 5,000 apartments, have this danger problem. Also, nationalization took place mostly in the center area of the city. So what is blue was more or less nationalized or retrocessed or contested, or it's like maybe the blue dots of the city. So all these contradictions and all these layers of let's say past and present are overlapping, and they give a very different image of how we look at the city actually as urbanists. And the city is much more complex than we thought at the beginning. And we started to document this in several projects and going deeper in some case studies. So, for example, this is the story of a national theater that didn't please the image of the national theater of the dictator, so it was built by the dictator before him. And he didn't like it, so they didn't know what to do about it, and they somehow wrap it. And so they just put this, so this is the image of the 70s, this is the image from the 80s. And these were scale 1-to-1 models of the facades, should be like this or like that. So, and then defines again the relationship of what is temporary and what is permanent in architecture and city. But then the initial project now it's getting back, so the wrapping is off now, and this is the picture of today. So all this temporary 30, 40 years of structure, it was dismantled. There are many situations like that. I would just tell you another story about National Circus and what is around it. It's a park, and what you can see in the right top, this long rectangle, the land was retrocessed to the former owner, and that was the place where the animals of the circle were walked, no daily fresh air, and so they had no place to go out. And then the temporary solution was to move them into some sort of land that was far away, and they were transported by car to the show, and that was not working. It was stressful. And then the decision was to take a part of the park, put a fence around it, and just put animals there. So actually, the project, this research project came from a call for utopia that was made by magazine, and our response to this call for utopia was present situation in Bucharest. So there are, if you just look at them all together, the utopia is there right in front of your eyes. I don't know if you see the camel back and the tower, and the lights in the park are switched on, and the benches are there, but there are no people there. So it's a sort of like a collage of situation. So as I was telling, we started to grasp this invisible conflict that actually takes urban form, and to try to understand the city in a much more complex situation, because we were trained more or less from the left image of looking at architecture, and the school in that time was this kind of school that it was all the time dissatisfied with the current urban condition of the city we were living and studying in. But then slowly we discovered that there are other ways of looking at the city, and we start to engage also this kind of methods of taking the city in a more everyday way. And then, so it was like a slap in the face. We discovered the city we were living in, but we discovered in the tremendous potential. And whatever we, let's say, we inherited this kind of public space where there was not real public space, it was just state space. And people were not, let's say, a part of it. And then suddenly was this shift, and we go to the other extreme, where there is no state space, but it's no one's space. So it's a resource to take, to privatize, to fence, to use it as a sort of, everyone can grasp a piece of it. And this kind of permanent conflict that was every day in front of our eyes as manifestations of contradictions and of clashing of ideologies or methods, like even simple, everyday uses of the city, was also generating a sort of adaptation to the conflict. It's human nature to adapt somehow to a sort of aggressive environment. So these guys are using these parking places in the weekend, which are empty, to just play soccer, and they just improvise it. And we can learn a lot from these habits. We don't have to invent anything. They put up their tools because it's easier to not get stolen during the night than transport it to the workshop. These fences are, as you take your parking place and you put a fence in your street to protect your parking place, but the left image is from the Romanian Academy, so everybody does it. It's in persons, institutions, or individual users. And these kind of everyday solutions are fascinating for us as specialists, but also they are very familiar as living in the city. I don't know if you understand the picture in the right. So there is a flower lady that needs water, and it's very hard to get water from this drinking fountain. So she just cut this bottle, and the water goes there from the bottle to the bucket. It's also this continuous phenomenon of cohabitation, actually, a sort of tolerance between contradictions. And these are shelters for dogs, street dogs, built by people who love dogs, and there are also people who hate dogs. But in the same time, everything happens in public space in the city, and it takes form. So we started to apply some of these lessons to these intervention projects, and we started to, let's say, test what we learned, because we didn't know what would be the result. And one of the examples that I will show is a more this kind of infrastructural project that took place in a art festival, a street art festival, that is aiming to reconnect two green areas in the city that were cut by two boulevards 100 years ago. And their aim is to, let's say, address this track of cultural interest points by making this festival only 3 days each year for, I don't know, 8 years, and try to react basically also to this kind of conditions. So open the street for people and closing it for cars, because this is the daily situation, maybe, but in the same time, as it was discussed in the previous lecture, maybe the people who are on the street, they're one who park there, so it's not different users. The driver is not a different species than the pedestrian. They just don't understand when they do something, they do also against them. And so the festival tries to show a sort of scale one-to-one model, how can a street like that could be. And we were invited to do something. And our first reaction to this festival, we invited several editions. Our first reaction was, let's try to do something that it's also beyond the festival, so it goes after these 3 days, and try to react about the complete lack of public space. This is not public space. This might be public domain, but it's not really public space as we think about it, because it's always contested. And this was the situation. So this is the street that is the street festival takes place, and in the right there is a bookstore, which is together with the Romanian Order of Architects. Cărturești Bookstore is one of the organizers and supporters of this festival. And in front of their bookstore there is this entrance street that people just used to park there, and there is a frustration of users of the bookstore that have no place to just sit, because basic needs are something that we don't have to invent, or especially in Bucharest's case, we don't have to invent really brilliant projects and interventions, but just brilliant, simple objects. Because there is, you can see the design of these fences, it's even dangerous. And so that the situation, so the red, there are the cars that are used to park, and we choose a very linear site that we discovered that it's a sort of uncertain territory, maybe a potential non-conflictual situation, because it's not clear who belongs to. So if this is the street and this is the green space, and this is some sort of directly crack in the pavement, and we decide to introduce there this sitting object that it's sitting on the fence and on the cobblestone, and wraps the situation without intervening too much. And during the festival, so these 3 days, everything was all right, and we didn't know what to expect from Monday morning. So that was very interesting for us, because we were kind of pessimistic about it. So we thought that the drivers, or they will kick the bench out, and somehow it will go. But what happened was a good surprise, I think, and we learned a lot about this, how you deal with a conflict and a sort of make peace between the users. So what happened is a very practical thing. So when you park your car, before the bench was here, you had room to open the door, but now the bench is like a little bit higher, so you could not open the door. So you have to park your car, I don't know, 60 centimeters away, and this is enough for a person to put their knees. So in the same place, both potentially conflictual situation coexist. So you can park and you can sit. And then, so for a project that has a 3-day permit, it entered this illegal life on the place. And because of that, the materials that we used at the beginning were not so resistant, so we have to take care of it. And this is what happens on the street, so there is this kind of wrapping of everything around, so we kind of use the same method and the same language, and we start to protect and wrap the bench with newspapers and all this kind of, and also people start to place their own announcements on the bench, and in a way it was a very familiar object. It was something like a camouflage. It was not something special or an artwork. It was just another Bucharest object. And so it became public equipment. It was used. It was generating public space. And then after 1 year, the city hall repaired the street, but they didn't intervene it was not their area. So the green spaces are from another department, which they don't maybe talk to each other. So they just repair it and not touching the bench. And in the same time, the bookstore, together with this architect who initiated this street festival, also installed other benches on the other side, but without forbidding the car traffic. It's still a street. We couldn't really put something in front of the car, but the space is short. It's not so wide anymore, so a car cannot pass and a car cannot park in the same time. So suddenly, the place becomes a sort of public space for everybody. This kind of inclusive territory for everybody to use, or in any way. And we're also repairing it each year. So this is like the fifth year that it's still there. So after 3 days, we are in the 5th year. But the material is getting damaged, so we have to replace. So we're constantly repairing it. I don't know, until forever, maybe. Now I just, it's in the same structure of a street festival, and after a few invitations, we also thought, okay, can we engage also the festival, the idea of the festival, which is a temporary suspended situation in the city that kind of reverse that's a street festival supposed to be. And we thought, what can a street for people look like besides being sidewalks and cars, and besides this kind of global package of shopping, cappuccino, strolling, and I don't know, whatever pavement is on. There is also other ways of thinking of pedestrian streets, and we started to address some of these special moments that also make the city. These moments where the rules of the city are kind of reversed, and they are caused by natural situations, like snow or water, and that are kind of also being part of the memory of the users of the city. And we started to do the wrong thing. You know, architects are always asked to do the right, to make things better and fluid and everything. And we wanted to block the street with all this festival to make a really mess in the middle of the street. And we constructed this pyramid out of pallets that was be also an obstacle, but also a magnet. So it has now real function. It was a sitting place, and it attracted people. It became a stage. I don't know, taking pictures, and it sort of was a platform in a sense that people use it as their own needs. There were also people who were selling things or exhibiting things, and that also encouraged us that in the next year, so in 2012, we also thought, okay, can we inject this obstacle situation with a big, important function? And one function that is kind of being a threat in the city is the water. And it's supposed to be, in Bucharest, it was supposed to be, it has, let's say, one river and a lot of lakes. It's supposed to be an engine, a social engine, and even economical engine of the city. And then maybe in socialist times, there were all these neighborhoods with all these swimming pools around, but now they are slowly starting to be closed. And this is the way of how the city exhibits water mall, these kind of aqua parks that are somewhere far away, sort of mall, water mall. We also look at how the people are informally using this, the waters, because we can learn a lot from this intuitively addressing the water. So here it says, this bathing is forbidden, fishing forbidden, the lake is not your swimming pool. This is that sign. And so we kind of address this character of what else can be a pedestrian street by just turning upside down the use. And we install a public bath in a couple of, I don't know, 2 hours. With just very simple methods. So we just rent these pallets because it's a 72 hours festival. We rent it, we put it on the sidewalk. That was half of the budget, was this blue folia that we printed on these companies that are printing banners for the city, for commercials and everything. And we printed with a map of Bucharest and the banner. Now it's used as a sort of workshop material. We can play it on the floor, and it's sort of all these kind of educational projects. So there is the resources there. And just from the 2 organizations that are on the street, they have gardens, and we took the hosts from their gardens. And the water was poured in a couple of hours. It suddenly became a swimming pool. And we were completely surprised and unprepared by the use of this place. So we thought, like, architects people would stay on the side and put their feet on the water and somehow cool down, because this festival is during the summer days, so it's really hot. But people use it as a sort of, they recognize what the use was, and they took it as a swimming pool, and came with their swimming costumes and use it in the way that kind of surpassed our expectations. But we also had to, develop kind of pool management techniques, like people who sort of invent some rules on the spot. And this was this negotiation about what you are allowed or not allowed to do in place. But we were not the ones who negotiate the rules, but the users themselves. And also the festival itself is bringing people in a neighborhood that kind of the pool mix up the local people and the users of the festival that normally tends to segregate in the social life of Bucharest. I mean, it's not the same groups going the same place, but here it was a complete superimposition of these rules. And again, something that we were contradicted about it. We wanted also to make it a sort of platform or like arena for other events and so on. And we organized this was a theater workshop and a concert and so on. But the function was so powerful that it didn't resist. I mean, people were asking, like, can you please stop this concert? We want really to take a bath. Well, it's nice, but so it was a sort of trial and error kind of project that prove that utopia is possible and it's not just a Photoshop collage. I'm just maybe just go a little bit quicker on this project that has addressing again the water in the city and the river in Bucharest, and it has multiple layers of doing that with different tools. And it was done in the framework of this festival, Plug to Nature, that it was a sort of advocacy project that tried to get back attention to the river in Bucharest, which was this kind of, so the rivers was channeled one moment because it was making a lot of floods, but in 1935, but then in 1985 the river goes also in the, where the central civic area is, so the river was practically demolished. In 85, the real river is going underneath in a big concrete box. So whatever is above, it's not a river anymore. I mean, what you see on the window is a river. But there is a spot where the river, it's not, it doesn't have cars on both sides, and where the National Library is, and that was the place of the festival. And we tried to address few of the references of the place, so the memory of the use of the river, also the demolitions, and also this kind of symbolically address the water. And we were having different interventions in this spot. And the first was this kind of symbolically address sort of harbor image of the water, and we hang these triangles that were messages written about what the river should become and collected from the area. We also have a workshop with kids in a place that was not normally used as a public space, and the kids were constructing islands for the river, so in a sort of symbolically address the river through also walks that were connecting the path of the river. There was also more permanent or public equipment kind of installation, so we built a lighthouse that it was a sort of in this kind of leftover space to make the connection of the city and the river. So the building that it's represent water, maybe the lighthouse was, but in the meantime the lighthouse gone, so it's gone because due to the security of the area, which is National Library and Ministry of Culture, it was not something that was fitting in there. But another installation or public equipment that it was done in the area was a reaction to, again, this kind of in-between or crack in the logic of the use of the space. So this is the fence that, so the National Library was part of the civic center of the 80s, and it was never finished. It was just now finished recently. And this is the leftover of the construction fence. And the streets, you see the street there is not really yet connected to the other streets, so it's not finished. So, but they leave the fence like that, and there is this difference in height that you cannot really go to the water, and we just make a very banal and simple intervention, just make a path that connects this different height. So repair some of the inherited uses of the space. And this is the last project I will show. As I was telling in the introduction, we started also for a while to get involved in community projects, or this kind of maybe different kind of public space, maybe the public space of the proximity, with getting experience and testing all these tools in different projects. And here they can all work in a common goal. And this is not a city in Bucharest, it's a mountain resort, Sinaia, but it's like a neighborhood of Bucharest. You know, everybody goes to this city that was always meant for foreigners, so not for the locals. So everything what is done in this city is more or less focused on the tourist. But there is a sort of local layer of it, and that's what we wanted to address starting 2011, where we invited by the architects organization, which had an annual ball meeting there, and we started to connect and collaborate with different local organizations, and we did the walks, we did a map of the city, which was didn't exist. I mean, it's really difficult to really explain the context, but you have to imagine that there was an old building that remained for from before the war, and on the map of the city was not marked or something like that. And we try also in this map to collect some of informal stories about the city, and doing walks, mixing the guests, architects, and the local kids. And we constructed this pavilion in front of the ball meeting, and slowly these connections with all these organizations transform in different projects. So this continue in the next years, also changing the place of the intervention, making a temporary theater in 2012, intervention workshop. I'm just making a little bit quicker because you just have an impression of it. And actually, this is something that you cannot show in the pictures, but the project was really achieving a sort of collaboration between all these individuals and organizations who previously didn't really work together. So this encouraged us to address more issues in the city, and we had a workshop of ideas of 4 interventions in the city with local kids, and then from that 4 interventions we choose one location, and this is in this neighborhood. I don't know, I just put this picture to have a metaphor of what. So this was a socialist neighborhood with flats and with a collective housing, and this, you know what this is? For the gas, yes. But why they are like that? I mean, because when the flats were built, it was not like that. Because everybody has their own heating device. So it's not the common heating device is a depot, and everybody. So this kind of metaphor of being from collective housing to as individual as possible. If you could really take your apartment, you could walk away, and then the public space around is only fenced and not allowed that. Actually, in the right picture, this is a playground. And we had intervention in two locations. So this is the former heating center, which, so the building is all the way, and in front what you see yellow is just a small part of it, which is a city hall that allowed us to use it, but they are using it only as a voting section, so throughout the whole year or whatever, nothing happens, and whatever is in the back is more like a depot. And we kind of open up this room that was given to us, and open up with different activities, and connect it with the local people from the neighborhood, and we bring also guests to tell stories and to organize events. And then, so the second location was is somewhere in this block of flats area. So, and it's one of the last places which is not fenced, because there is this public infrastructure. So people are drying their clothes outside. So we couldn't really fence it. So we found it the last piece of public space that it's still there, and we kind of make a sort of event in a temporary fashion for just a weekend, but this really was enjoyed a lot by people, and especially by kids and their parents. And so this is a sort of continuous narrative. We started this year to get to the next level of in a more let's say urbanistic approach, and have different activities like in the past years, but also having interviews with people from the neighborhood, and try to make a sort of portrait, or to get from the locals how the neighborhood is behaving, and again organizing activities that are very simple in a way, but like this movie night. But then there were some parents who were really happy that their kids are probably watching the first movie together with their friends, because this not happened anymore. I mean, it's not something normal that also the city doesn't have a cinema. So, and the formal heating center was finally reopened, but not distributing heat, but distributing something else. that we are working on the next phase of some of the proposal of intervention in the neighborhood that are also physical intervention, but also more like functional interventions. I think that's it. Thank you.